Hello, my name is and I am a person who is in long-term recovery. And what that means is that I have not had a drink or drug since November 19th of 2016. I don't really know where to begin because there are so many things I want to tell you. The gravity of events that have happened in my life is a weight that I struggle to carry sometimes. Between the choices I've made and the pieces of my soul that I lost before my soul even had the chance to become whatever it was ever going to be. But eventually, I was given a chance to make the decision to write a new story. I don't want to spend a lot of time on my using, so long story short, I was just a very lost young girl who pondered on the idea of life a little too much and thought I could find the answers in drugs of all forms. I started drinking at the age of 14, and by the time I was 21, I had a needle in my arm, and I continued to use in that manner for the next 5 years. I was the good girl who secretly wanted to be the bad kid. I was always drawn to the darker side of life, and my favorite thing to do was to go against the grain of society. I spent Thanksgiving of 2016 in a 28-day program within the confines of the Middleton jail. A few days before Christmas, I arrived at the Megan's house as a broken shell of a human being. I didn't know who I was, and I certainly didn't want to stay sober. I didn't know how to think of anything else other than being in the blissful void of being high and shut off from the world that I think deep down I wanted to be a part of, but was too afraid to try. I was afraid that if I ever achieved anything in my life, that I would just get bored of it and that none of it would matter anyway. Over the next 7 months there, I learned about accountability, integrity, communication, setting healthy boundaries, and what my disease is. Whether it's a disease or not, I don't really care. All I know is I have a condition that threatens my life on a daily basis, and I have to work hard to keep it under control. The Megan's House introduced me to a community that is filled with tools I can use to preserve my recovery. The greatest threat to my recovery, but strangely enough, was also my number one motivator, was a man who I was in love with and had been with for 5 years. We had been with each other every day for those years out there using together. We had a bond and a love that I couldn't possibly make you understand. We had an understanding of each other that was on a level few ever get to experience. We suffered the same, but did our best to lead as normal a life as we could. But eventually, I was taken away and thrown into the world of recovery. Each day, I was growing more and more willing to give this a chance. I was getting better, and he was getting worse. The irony of it all is that I truly believe he wanted sobriety more than I did. In all of his wisdom, it seems he was never able to apply it to himself. And on May 21st of 2018, early in the morning, he died of an overdose. He was found on the floor of his bedroom by his younger sister, who was home from college. I always remember this one line he wrote in a letter to me when I was in my first 30 days of sobriety. He wrote, "Keep your head up, stay out of the nonsense, and help those less fortunate than you." Ever since he died, I wonder if he really knew how much his brilliance and insight had shined onto others and at the volume that it did. This wasn't the only tragedy I faced. Another year and a half later, I've got my own apartment, which I shared with another graduate from the Megan's House. We had become very close. We were almost the same in terms of style, personal experience, and the way we looked at the world. We'd sit on our roof, look at the stars, and talk about life. We'd share jokes and laugh together. We would share our pain and cry together. On October 30th of 2019, I came home and found her dead from an overdose. Another beautiful soul who I loved, and I had failed once again. And this time it was under my own roof. I can't tell you why this has worked for me and not for them. I can't tell you why some make it and some don't. I have placed both of these deaths heavily on my conscience, as I'm sure others do too. Us addicts and alcoholics are soldiers on the battlefield in the war against ourselves, and most don't get to come home. And the ones that do make it have to live with the guilt of survival and coming home to tell the family member that I'm the one who made it, but their loved one didn't. Life isn't fair, but at the end of the day, we all have a choice. I've chosen to keep going and to continue to carry the message, because as long as we're still here, there's always hope. Through both of these traumatic experiences, the Megan's House was there for me. When my boyfriend died, Kim, the clinical director, would take time out of her day to let me sit in her office, allow me to pour my heart out and cry. She gave me the gift of sharing her own experience with grief. It's a process that is not linear, and it is my own journey. Some days are harder than others, but I will get through them. When the graduate I was living with died, Kylie, who's the house director of Aaron's house, which is where I had resided before moving into my apartment, called me and told me, "There's a bed open in your old room. If it's too much for you to stay there on your own, you're more than welcome to come back." I came back to Aaron's house November of 2019, and I've resided there since, and I'm scheduled to move out again next month. It's interesting that the greatest amount of pain I felt was not while I was using. It was in sobriety. But despite the hardships, I have continued to persevere. And on November 19th of 2020, God willing, I will have 4 years of continuous sobriety. I continue to show up and try to help others that are less fortunate than me. For so long, I have felt like I never really belonged anywhere or really had anything that identified me as who I am. I've recently gotten back into things that I used to love as a kid prior to the drugs taking over my life. I think about life and what it means and what it all is. That's just who I am and what it's always been. I was always looking for answers to the questions that no one had the answers to, and I never really felt comfortable with that. Being in long-term recovery has given me the strength and the courage to face my fears and to not care what other people think, and to focus on the things that truly make me happy. All of this was only made possible by the Megan's House Foundation. I was sent there, stipulated and unwilling. But with their help, my eyes were open to the idea that there was another way of living that was possible for me to attain so long as I was willing to work for it. That there was this new story I could make, and within that story would be the answers to the unanswerable questions I've sought after all my life, which at the end of the day could only be found within myself. And that it's okay if I didn't have all the answers right now. I just had to keep going. It's because of folks like you that make it possible for places like the Megan's House to give young women like me a fighting chance at life. So thank you.
In just 5 short years, the Megan House Foundation can boast the following success stories. 83 young women have graduated the program. Several of these graduates have celebrated at least 3 years in recovery. Dozens have earned their high school equivalency or gone on to higher education. Many more have gone on to gainful employment, and most importantly, many have reunited with their children and their families. None of this could have been accomplished without your help. We've asked a lot throughout the years, and you've always come through. But now we need your help more than ever. As COVID-19 has ravaged our communities, our entire planet for that matter, the challenges facing those in recovery have only multiplied. On behalf of everyone at the Megan's House Foundation, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view this video. With your help, we can write even more success stories. Thank you.